Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to the Bricks King podcast, where I'm going to bend your ear about Lego, review those amazing bricks of plastic, and discuss what is new and up and coming around the Lego world. I'm your minifig host, Matt. Let's bet on it. Welcome in, everybody, to this lovely episode today, where we have an opportunity to talk to the unfortunately removed contestant from Lego Masters. Tim and Zach went home, unfortunately, and so we've got that for you today, an interview with a few other fan media, getting the questions out there. And this one was pretty quick. He's pretty concise when he speaks. And so here we go.
Sure. Hi, Tim. Megan with Brickset. Nice to see you again. Sorry that we're seeing you so quickly in this season. But really enjoyed your builds. I love the cats on the buildings that's on the episode last night. I
had to get one just because I was like, I gotta go get me one.
My first question is actually about your builds from weeks 1 and 2.
Okay.
Because there's 12 teams, everybody's builds really didn't get a whole lot of attention. Wondering if you could share with us some of the details that you had in those builds that might not have made it on the camera that our readers would like to know about.
Yeah, that's an awesome question, and thank you for asking that. So let's start with episode 1. We did the 4 seasons, which was based off of a Michigan type theme. Our family loves the outdoor. We love the activities that are going on outside. And so as you go around, I'll start with winter. That was the back corner that you really couldn't see because of the way that things were coming around. We had an ice skating rink out there because obviously Northern Michigan, we're big on the ice skating thing. Will and I had a little bit of dialogue about which hockey team was better, Toronto or Detroit. That was all a lot of fun, but that was in the back part of it. And then moving forward, we had the springtime, which starts with, we have fishing, and we had people in a little bit of a lake area. So we kind of took half of a minifig and stuck it in the lake. And then we had fisher guys. It was just a lot of fun. And then the summer in June, that's my wife and I's anniversary. And we often go up to Mackinac because they have what's called the Lilac Festival. And so we kind of honored that summertime, and we put the brick built carriage with the horses in it. And up in Mackinac, there's no cars. So we were kind of paying homage to the Mackinac, and we built like bushes that had a lot of the lilac type feels on that. And then obviously coming around, we had the autumn time, which we do a lot of hiking, a lot of color up here. Absolutely love being outside because of all of the beautiful color that we get up here in Northern Michigan. The interesting thing, though, that you couldn't see is the actual tower, because in Northern Michigan, we have a lot of cities and towns that are alpine themed, and they all kind of go back and forth with sister villages over in Switzerland. And so the clock tower was themed upon the alpine type building that is all over Northern Michigan. And then Zach built a really cool base. When Jamie came over, he's like, oh, that's a really great use. And that never made it onto TV, but it's really cool. Some of the stuff that Zach built on the bottom, and Zach's really, the whole thing that Zach did was the middle tower, building all of the mechanisms and the moving parts and features, while I focused on the 3 seasons and kind of building out the different scenes. So that was what we did there. That was a lot in a little bit there. So the second one, and that was actually my idea, because I've kind of split. I was usually the creative. Zach is more technical, which is really how we played off of each other. The second one, as soon as we picked up our mad scientist, our evil scientist, right? Zach came back to the stand and he's like, Dad, I know what we're going to do. I've got the idea. I got it down. And so immediately he laid out, we're going to do these 2 vials and they're going to blow up here. And we're going to do a factory. And then we're going to call them Doofenshmirtz and all these other really cool things. He had the idea like immediately. And so we started building right away. And I was confident about, and I said this on the show too, I was confident about the vials because I understood where that was going. But anyway, it's just the 2 things went perfectly. Didn't quite get the wall to fall, as you saw. We were really disappointed about that, but we were just, it's just part of the show. So we really had a great time, especially with those first 2 ones. My favorite was number 1. Zach's favorite was number 2. So that's kind of how we split. But
Okay, and to follow up on that, since unfortunately you and Zach were eliminated last night, what would you do in hindsight? What would you change about your build last night?
I've had this question a lot of times. What would you do differently? it's hard to express when somebody's not on the show and they don't understand the pressure and the amount of pieces that you have and the amount of time that you have. You make decisions and you make things because of time. So for example, in our situation, and you saw this specifically, Jamie came up in the show and he said, that's your weakest area. I was like, I know, but I don't have time to fix it. So it's like, how do you express, would I do something differently? Yes, but I didn't have time to do anything differently. So I would love to go back, and if I had infinite amount of time, oh yeah, we could build an incredible thing, but it's hard to express, like, what would you do differently? There's nothing I could do differently because we did the best we could with the amount of time we had, the pieces we had, and the rules that we had to play within. So I'm not a regret type individual. I don't have regrets. I'm like, we just played full out. We're going to do this. And that's where it was at.
Oh, that's awesome. I also subscribe to a similar belief of you make the best decisions you can with the information you have at the time.
Exactly. That is exactly it. It was what we had, pieces, parts, time, everything. I would make the same decisions again because we did the best we could with our positions. Now, hindsight, of course, you've got better ideas. You've got better things. You've done a practice run. You can do it better. But that's just where we were at.
Yeah. Okay. My last question is, being on a national TV show with your son, how has your cool dad index increased because of being on Lego Masters?
Let's just be clear. I'm not the cool dad. So I'll say this, and everybody kind of laughs at me. One of my nephews actually labeled me as the Funkle. So I'm the fun uncle, right? I'm not necessarily the cool one because everybody, all of the kids, the nephews, the nieces, they all look at me and they say, like, dude, that's not cool. Like, so I have no coolness and I will never attest to having coolness. I mean, look at my dad. I mean, it's what it was, right? So, but the whole aspect of this is the fact that I want to make sure that I'm relatable. And by being relatable is by connecting with either my nieces, nephews, my kids, even other kids. I want to make sure that I can connect with them at where they're at. So just correct the record. I am not a cool dad. I'm just a dad, and I'm just playing as best as I can with what I've got. So,
well, it sounds like you had a great time, and you made me very nostalgic from Michigan, since I spent many years there, and I'm actually on my way moving back to the Midwest. So I will leave the questions to the others, but it was great to talk to you again.
Thank you so much.
Well, Tim, I'm very sad to be talking to you today, but you should be very proud of everything that you accomplished on the show with Zach. My first question really is around the final challenge. You know, when it comes to the division of labor and that 500 bricks per hour that we saw, you know, how did you and Zach approach the challenge, just from a division of labor, or, you know, how you were going to really reach 4 feet? I'm curious to get your strategy.
Yeah. So when we look at the division of labor, frankly, in this one, because we've got to put bricks down and we've got to focus and kind of divide out and manage the time. So you heard Jamie kind of give an idea of, well, you've got 25% of your build done and you have 25% of the time. So we were all of the contestants were thinking along that exact same line. And so we're all kind of gauging how things are going up. And when you see on the show, I would say I think it was around the 3 hour mark. I'm not real clear on that, but around the 3 hour mark is where we were at 2 feet. So we were in the same position and we're like, we've got to get another 2 feet up here and we've got to make it aesthetically pleasing. It can't just be blocks going up. And I was feeling the pressure. I was just like, oh crap, here we go. So it's just like, okay, Zach, I'm going to build the inside. You keep moving on the outside. It's like, it was just like this craziness that was all going on. So the division of labor, it was get bricks down. It was just, we got to get bricks down. So that's where it was.
No, I can definitely appreciate that, especially with the time crunch working against you. When it comes to the show, you know, you mentioned it to me in the preseason that this time with your son was just truly invaluable. You know, now kind of looking back on it and literally getting to watch your experience back, you know, how has that either changed your opinion of your time on your show or further strengthened your opinion about the time with your son on the show?
It's nothing I would ever trade for any amount of money ever. And to me, the time with Zach is more valuable than winning. It's more valuable than the trophy, or more valuable than anything. Now, don't get me wrong. Is it fun to win? Of course it's fun to win. Of course, that's where it's at. But my value is not tied in the winning. My value is tied up in my identity of being able to spend time with my kids. That's my legacy. If I am, for me to consider myself a success and of any worth, it's that time and spending that and connecting with my kid. And that goes for all 3 of my kids.
Yes, well, as one of three siblings, as one of three, I definitely appreciate that you said the one-on-one time, because you don't often get that. And then my final question is just really around, was there something that, had you made it further, you were hoping to get to show us, some particular specialty or a challenge, a type of challenge you were looking forward to that you didn't get a chance to do on the show?
Well, clearly we didn't know what the challenges were coming. We had no idea what was happening until Will said, ready, go. And then we knew what the challenges were. So moving forward, I don't even know how to answer that question, because I just don't know what the challenges are. So as far as being able to share things, the only thing that I really would have liked to have more of, if it would have been possible, and it's hard to show this on TV, so I love the way they're editing this. Is not a knock on that, but is the banter that we have between our contestants. And they showed a little bit of it here and there, but that was only like a smidgen, like 1%. And the connection that we had, I think the first build we were next to Jack and Dawn, and we just were clowning and bantering back and forth. And then the next one we were next to Philip and Maria, and then Randall and Sarita. And then, we went down, we were next to people. That banter is, I wish we could share more of that, because that's what bonded us together as contestants. And we were racing against the build, competing against the build, but we really weren't competing against each other.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much for the time, and good luck with everything in the future.
Hey, Tim, Matt from the Bricks King podcast. Nice to chat with you. So
I see the world in the background. That's pretty cool.
When the idea of Lego Masters came about, what was the first reaction to competing against the other talented builders you knew you were going to be facing against, and especially being on national TV?
Man, you're asking me for an authenticity type question. All transparency, I don't feel like I am worthy to compete against these guys, because when I look at their builds and I look at what they're doing, I'm like, dude, these are really awesome builders. And so when you're looking at the Lego Master, I am humbled to be able to call myself that. Just because when I look at some of the stuff that they're doing, they've got some insane amount of talent. So it's a little bit of a feeling of imposter syndrome when I step onto that court, because I just feel like there's a lot of good players, and there's some people that are really great that didn't get on, and it's almost like, why me? So just being real with you, it's hard to express that, but there's a lot of a feeling of imposter syndrome when you step onto the big screen like that.
That works for me. That's a perfect response. All right. So you talked about banter, and we heard similar things last week from Jack and Dawn about how some friendships were built and stuff like that. And you guys got really close with one another, especially under the certain circumstances you guys were dealing with at the time, with not being able to go out and stuff. So out of the other pairs, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here. Who did you feel like you guys bonded with more closely out of your time?
Yeah, so it's a really great question. And there's certain things that happened because we were next to people. We had more time to be able to spend with them, or because we were riding with them in a van, or we were connected somewhere in the green room. Somewhere there was a close contact, which allowed us to have a little bit better connection, right? So for us, Philip and Maria, obviously they're from Michigan. And so we immediately connected because they're from Michigan. Jack and Dawn's from Michigan. We immediately had a connecting point, right? But there were others, Randall and Sarita, we were actually with them because we were driving partners, and we were able to actually spend some time with them and have some banter back and forth with them. But those were really the main ones. I'm trying to think if there was anybody else that we were really close with, but that's pretty much how we had, it was more of a proximity thing that created that. And then after, and as we've been going on along the show, we've gotten closer with some of the others, but during the show, it was just a proximity thing.
Fantastic. That's good to know. The last one, this one's just kind of simple. I'm just really curious. So out of being on the show for however many days it ended up being, what was your favorite moment, your favorite part of being in this challenge? Aside from being with Zach and spending that one-on-one time.
It is Zach. Everything is with Zach. The thing that touched me the most, and it's because of time constraints, they can't edit and show everything. But Zach had a little bit of a monologue when we ended our time, and it was probably a good 2 or 3 minutes. Now, because of editing, you can't show all of that. So they picked the highlights, and they did a great job. But that monologue meant more to me than the entire show, because him being able to confirm and say, this is why we're here, and I appreciate what Dad has done in my life, that right there gave me more of a confirmation than anything else. That's my favorite part of the entire experience.
I appreciate that response. Great you're going to get me like you did last night again. So,
well, you're kind of getting me to the point. So I got to be careful. I got to focus on something else here.
All right. Thanks, Tim. Let's take a quick break and we'll be back in a moment with the rest of the interview.
Hey, thanks for being here. Let's get another family question. How long have you two been building together? And do you have any favorites?
You mean as sets or?
Just the two of you building mocks together and stuff.
Okay. Yeah. So real quick scenario. When Zach was 3, he was trying to steal his brother's Lego and all of the sets. And as a 3-year-old, as parents, we're like, no, you're going to stick that in your nose or you're going to poke your eyeball out or something like that. So we're scrambling, trying. So his first memory is 7. And when we started buying a bunch of different sets, Star Wars or things like that. And it was that whole connection at about 7 when we started looking at, okay, we're going to build together. And he quickly, by age 10, was like, no, Dad, I don't need you anymore. I'm going to put this set together. So he quickly advanced. And then that basically there was a little bit of a pause, not a pause of building, because he always wanted sets. He always wanted to do that. But there's a little bit of a pause in the relationship. And then, let's see, about 7 to 10 years ago is when we kind of made that transition from set builders to mock builders. And that was, we ended up like, what do you want to do, Zach? Because you got sets, you got everything else. He's like, well, how about I just start putting stuff together? Okay, well, let's go buy some bulk Lego. And as we bought the bulk, we started sorting it, separating it, putting in, organizing, all this kind of stuff. And then he started building towns and houses. Quick little story on this. The very first big mock that he built was a long bridge. He hates it when I tell the story too. It's a very, very long bridge. And I was like, dude, that is freaking awesome. And so I'm watching him do this. And I said, let's change this and do this and here and everything. But he pretty much did almost all of that by himself. He is so OCD that he started counting the studs and he was 1 stud off. It was out of balance by 1 stud. The next day he tore the entire bridge down. His mother and I were like, what? What did you do? What are you doing? But because it was 1 stud off. Anyway, so that's a quick funny story on that. But anyway, so that's what we've done. We started building mocks. The biggest mock we did was the castle. It was 2 tables, 4 foot by 8 foot. We showed that down in Brick World. That was 2019, I think, was when we did our first display in Brick World.
Very cool. So last week's challenge was all about breaking the model, whereas this week you want it to be as sturdy as possible, like most other things. So how do you switch mindsets between challenges?
Well, we don't do this kind of stuff normally. You don't build the break and you don't build the shake. I mean, you just don't do that, right? So as far as from a mindset component, the one thing that I knew, and this is why I was very confident about the vials, is I knew the blow up had to be controlling the gas. And if we could control the gas, I could control the break. I have a little bit of a pyro background when I was working on stage, so I knew a little bit about how to control the gases, not a lot. And the other thing I'll tell you, when we do our pyro testing, we test it 10 times to make sure that it's going to work the way it's going to work. So I was confident about the vials just because it was a small contained area. I wasn't confident about the other stuff, but I just knew what to do on that one. When it came to the shake, frankly, none of the teams knew. I mean, we all talk big talk, but I'll just be honest, none of us really knew what we were doing. We're like, well, I think this is going to work. And you heard Philip and Maria about ball joints and tires. I mean, we were just pulling stuff everywhere. I think this is going to work. So it was a lot of fun to kind of experiment, but it's just not something that you normally build with. So all of the things that we're doing, quite frankly, whether it's the build to break or build to shake or even the float, it's all a mindset of what's the challenge? What are the rules? What are the things, the parameters? And we've got to manage our time and we've got to just work through and make sure that we overcome and at least provide a mock that is something that we can deliver.
Very cool. And then finally, did you discover any new favorite elements in the brick pit?
I've always been a fan of snot pieces, but that's the one thing that I've always done. I mean, I use this in my illustration. This is a Lowell sphere. You guys are all familiar with that. But I love using this as far as making sure that you've got the right pieces in the right places, and snot makes it possible to build a circle or sphere out of square pieces. And it's really cool.
Great. Thank you.
Right. So my first question for you is, what was the biggest lesson that you learned from being on Lego Masters?
Can I redirect this question in just one way? It was a confirmation of a lesson that I've been learning for the last 5 years. Because as I look at my life, there was a time when getting knocked out at any point in time, it would have been a hit to my own core, my value, my confidence. And the confirmation that I have at this moment is the work that I've been doing to train my mindset, to focus on the positives, to adjust and be able to overcome things that are there. the lessons that I've learned there were reinforced while I was on the show. Because if you don't focus on the next opportunity or the next advantage, or don't focus on the fact that my value comes from within, not from outside, but my value comes from within, then it's going to be a struggle no matter what you do.
So that might lead into my second question, and that's for future contestants, potential future contestants. What would you advise them is the best quality that they could have?
Mindset, 100% mindset. I don't even have to think about that. It's all about your mindset. See, the thing is when you're in a competition, you're in life or you're in business, it doesn't matter the arena that you're playing in. It all comes down to what's going on between your ears. It's always about your mindset, because you can only control what is going on inside, and you can only control certain things. You can control your emotions. You can control how you're feeling about some things. You can control what you say. I can't control the time clock. That clock is going to run no matter what. I can't control what the rules are. I can't control what pieces are always available. I can't control a lot of that thing. And yet in our lives, we attempt to control everything outside of our control, when in reality, we need to be controlling what's going on internally. We need to control what's going on inside of our minds. That is the absolute key. And it's more than just a contestant. It's how you live your life. You've got to live your life understanding that you control what you can control.
Right.
Sorry,
and if you could have designed the perfect challenge going into this show for where you and Zach could have really shined, what would that challenge have looked like?
So there's two things that we love to build. It's architecture type things, specifically in the castle aspect, and then creating nature type rolling scenes. So it's not just about, there's a lot of great builders in there that were doing big type sculpture kinds of things. Those are a lot of fun, but our skill set is, how do you tell a story that is like a minifigure type scale and roll through that? You'll notice in the preview, we had our boat scene with the lighthouse, and there's different people doing things, and that lends to, same thing with our first mock. We kind of created the running scene, and that's what I'd love to do. So,
all right, thank you very much.
Hey Tim, how you doing? Good to see you. So what was there anything that really surprised you about being part of the competition?
The other contestants. I was pleasantly surprised by the other contestants. And the reason for that is I've watched reality TV shows enough to think that it was going to be cutthroat, and that it was going to be kind of, I don't mean this in a negative way, but it feels kind of underhanded, and people are kind of giving a fake. And I felt like, I kind of thought walking into that, I was prepared for that. But when we got there, the reality is the people that you see on TV are the same people that were behind the scenes. They didn't change their personalities. They didn't change who they were. They are genuine individuals. And that surprised me. Out of everything, that's the number one thing that surprised me.
Cool. You've talked a little bit about how the time with Zach was kind of like the one-on-one time with Zach was the most meaningful piece to you. And you have two other kids. If you were to go on to let's see, a competition television series with each of your other kids, what other shows would we see?
I love that question. So number one, I would say with Micah, it would be Alone, but we'd have to do it as a duo, right? We'd have to be, it couldn't be alone, but it'd have to be, I think they did one season where it was a duo, and we could do it then. So that would be the one with Micah. With my daughter, it would have to be something that has to do with either dance or drama. And it would put me so far out of my comfort zone. I mean, like, I felt like I was stretching out my comfort zone with Lego, but with my daughter and the Broadway and dance and shopping, like all of those, that's her thing, right? So in my heart, I know that's what I'm going to do, but I'm also like mentally like, dang it, I'm going to have to go shopping with my daughter. I'm going to have to go all these Broadway shows. I'm going to have to do all this, but it's a way to connect. And that's where I put my feelings aside to be able to connect. So it's got to be probably a shopping challenge. I don't know, something like that.
Fun. And what would you say is the one most important message that you would hope viewers walk away from Lego Masters Season 2, believing?
Man, I love that you're asking me what's the most important question, or what's the most important principle or the whole lesson. My life is not in singular form. Like, I always come up with 2 or 3 or 4 lessons, right? So maybe I can summarize it in this way. The first thing that you have to understand, the lesson is that you've got to be able to build your own personal growth, and you've got to take care of yourself in order to be able to give to others. And so when you step into a competition situation like this, yes, it's a competition, yes, we were dealing with other people, but my purpose in doing that and being on the show was, how can I leave an impact? And that doesn't mean just necessarily an impact on Zach, but how do I leave an impact on the contestants? How do I leave an impact on the producers? How do I leave an impact on all of those PR people that are behind the scenes? And I'm there specifically to be able to help in any way that I can and leave an impact on them. And I've had some of the producers come up and say, hey, thanks for this or thanks for that. And that means more to me. So here's the point. When you lead from service, you get your impact. So understanding that it's meeting and serving other people, that's the lesson that you take away. So whether you're in a competition or you're in just regular life, the lesson is, how can you be of service and how can you help support another individual?
I love that. Thank you so much, Tim. It's great talking to you again.
Well. That was pretty cool. Good stuff from Tim. Unfortunately, Zach wasn't able to attend, which, it stinks, but, he's busy as well. Tim was busy as well. He had stuff going on, and, we only had 30 minutes, but we some good questions. It's really sad to see, somebody go home and then you see them on the game show. That's one thing. But then when you see them outside of, this as well, it gives you a different feel for them, as not just as a person, but just as an overall character of, what they're dealing with as far as the show, and then their regular life, and some really good stuff there. I got to say that some of the things that, Tim said really just kind of stuck with me. And, it's really interesting to hear that. And there's one thing I wanted to touch on real quick. The one question I had for him about, tell me about your favorite time on the show, other than, with spending time with Zach. And I was hoping he might, add something different. And so that was my intent behind that. I know it sounds kind of jerkish of a question, but that was not my point behind it. But overall, it was a really cool interview. And yeah, I can't wait to see what happens next week. And I guess we'll see who goes home, right? So until then, I'm your minifig host, Matt. Let's build on it.